The red sun was setting behind the mountains of planet Eos 9. The sky turned dark purple. Cold winds moved across the empty land. Commander Rain was walking back to his small research outpost. He had been scanning for rare minerals all day. His boots were heavy with dust and his body felt tired. He moved through the metal junkyard near the old cargo crash site. This area was quiet, too quiet. The silence felt strange today. As Rain walked past a broken cargo crate, he stopped. Something moved behind it, a soft sound, not metal, not wind. He turned slowly, hand on his sidearm. "Is someone there?" he asked loudly. No answer. But then, he saw her. A figure slowly came into the light. It was a woman, thin, weak, and shaking. Her skin was pale blue, almost silver. Her eyes were big and glowing softly, like cold stars. Her clothes were torn, dirty, and not from earth. Her arms were thin, her cheeks hollow. Rain didn't move. His heart beat fast. She looked scared, like a hunted animal. She held her hands up, showing she had no weapon. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Only a soft gasp. Then she looked at Rain's food pack. Rain understood. He slowly took out his meal ration and placed it on a nearby rock. Then he stepped back. The woman stared at it for a moment. Her hands shook as she reached forward. She grabbed the pack, opened it fast, and began to eat like she hadn't eaten in days. Her eyes filled with tears as she chewed. She covered her mouth like she felt shame. Rain watched silently. He didn't know what to say. Who was she? Where did she come from? She suddenly stopped eating and looked behind her. Her body became tense, her eyes wide with fear. She made a small clicking sound in her throat. Rain followed her gaze. Nothing was there, yet, but he felt it tooth a strange air pressure, like something was coming. He looked down at her wrist, froze. A metal cuff was around it. A broken chain still hanging from the side. Someone had chained her. She wasn't just lost, she was a prisoner. Who did this to you? Rain asked softly. She looked at him, her face full of pain, but didn't answer. She pointed at her mouth and shook her head. Maybe she couldn't speak his language. Rain took a step closer. It's okay. You're safe now. She flinched and stepped back. Rain stopped. I won't hurt you. He crouched down to look less threatening. Then she did something strange. She took a stick and drew a symbol in the dirt. A circle with a triangle inside it. Then a small dot outside. Rain didn't understand it at first. Then he remembered a symbol used in deep space navigation. The dot meant escape. She had escaped from something. Were you on a ship? He asked. She nodded. Prison ship. She nodded again, this time slowly. Rain stood up. This was serious. No report said anything about crashed prison ships on Eos 9. Why hadn't the scanners picked this up? He heard a sudden sound. A strange click-click in the distance. Not animal, not human. The woman's eyes went wide with panic. She grabbed Rain's arm and pulled him down. She shook her head fast and put her finger to her lips. Rain crouched behind the cargo with her. They both stayed still. Then he saw it. A shadow moved through the dust, tall, armored, and quiet. It walked like it knew the land. It carried something sharp, maybe a weapon. Its face was hidden behind a helmet. It moved without sound, scanning. The area .RAYN held his breath. The woman was shaking. Who were these people? Why were they hunting her? The figure passed without seeing them. After a few minutes, silence returned. Rain looked at her. Come with me, he whispered. My outpost is close. She hesitated. I can help you, he said again. Finally, she nodded. They moved quickly through the junk and rocks. Oh, she walked. With difficulty, clearly weak. Rain offered his hand. She took it as they walked. Rain felt a strange responsibility. This wasn't just a lost alien. This was a warning. Something bad had happened and it had come to his world. When they reached the outpost, Rain opened the door. Inside, the lights turned on with a soft hum. The woman stepped in. Looking around carefully, Rain gave her a blanket and more food. She sat down and ate slowly now, looking at him with tired eyes. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then she pointed to a screen and said her first word. Hunters. Rain stared at her. That's when he realized someone would come for her. And they wouldn't stop until they found her. The outpost was quiet. Too quiet. Commander Rain sat near the console, watching the strange woman from a distance. She was wrapped in a gray blanket sitting on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest. The light from the heater flickered across her face. She didn't speak. She hadn't since she said one word. Hunters. Her eyes stayed fixed on the door, like she expected it to burst open at any moment. Rain's outpost was small just enough for one man. A control desk, a small bed, storage, and basic scanners. Nothing strong enough to defend against what he'd seen earlier. The tall figure in armor was still in his mind. He opened the scanner feed. It showed nothing. No ships in orbit, no life signs nearby. But Rain didn't trust the screen anymore. He looked at her again. She hadn't moved. She just stared, silent. Her hands trembled, even in the warmth. Rain took a deep breath and walked over. He placed a cup of water near her. She looked at it, then at him. Her eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't wild. They were sad. Deep sadness, the kind you don't get from hunger or fear. The kind that comes from losing something forever. He sat down a few feet from her. You're safe here, he said gently. She didn't respond. He opened his portable scanner and turned the small screen toward her. I want to help. Can you? Show me something. She leaned forward slowly. Rain tapped on the screen, opening the drawing tool. He handed it to her. She held the device carefully, like it was made of glass. Her fingers moved slowly. She drew a large circle, then smaller circles inside. She drew lines crossing between them. Then a dark mark on one side. Finally, she tapped one spot near the edge and made an X. Rain studied it. It was a ship map, and she had marked the prison block. Rain's voice was low. You escaped from here. She nodded. He pointed to the large, dark section. What's this? She paused, then drew small figures inside the space, trapped, lying down, some crossed out. Prisoners, dead. Ones, Rain felt a chill. How many of you were there? She held up 5 fingers. Then only 2. Rain whispered, only 2 made it out. She nodded. Then she raised 1 finger. Rain frowned. Just you now. She nodded again. Her lips pressed together. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Rain looked away, trying to control the wave of anger inside him. This wasn't just about one escapee. Something was running a hidden prison ship, taking living beings from across space and using them. For what? Experiments, trade, slavery. And they were here now. Kuyos-9. He stood up and walked to his desk. He opened the central command log and searched for any recent crash reports. Nothing. No logs, no messages. No signs that any ship had fallen nearby. So how had she gotten here? Suddenly, a soft sound made him turn. She was standing now, slowly walking toward the wall. She touched it gently, as if remembering something. Then, she tapped her wrist, the broken cuff. She began drawing again. this time with her finger on the dusty wall. A star, a triangle, a line breaking through. Then a circle with a small dot. Ah, symbol he now recognized. Escape, from control to freedom. Rain understood what she meant. She hadn't just escaped a ship. She had broken through something bigger, but then she pointed at him. At his chest, Rain stepped back slightly. What? Me. She nodded slowly, then she pointed at the console. He walked over and opened the comms log. A few seconds later, he saw it a blocked transmission, hidden deep in the system. Not sent by him, someone had used his outpost to signal. Off-World. His face went cold. They knew where she was. They tracked you here. He said. The woman closed her eyes. She hadn't just run to him. She had been led here. Someone or something had wanted her to be found. But why? Rain walked to the wall panel and opened a secret compartment. Inside was a small emergency tunnel, barely big enough for a person to crawl through. He turned to her. If they come, we go through here. She looked at the dark hole, fear in her eyes. I know you're scared, Rain said. A lie. But I won't. Let them take you again. She nodded slowly. He sat down again, watching the scanners. Still nothing. But outside, in the cold darkness, far beyond what the system could see, something was coming. And this time, it wasn't just looking for her. The night on Iosnin was long and heavy. Wind howled outside the outpost like distant screams, and dust danced under the cold stars. Inside, Commander Rain couldn't sleep. The alien woman, he still didn't know her name, sat quietly in the corner. Her glowing eyes half closed. She hadn't touched the food he gave her this time. Her body rested, but her mind did not. Rain could feel it. She was waiting, listening. Remembering. Rayn checked the outside scanners for the 5th time. Still no signals. Still no ships. That made it worse. The silence wasn't normal. It was planned. He got up and stepped outside for a moment, holding his energy rifle close. His boots crunched softly on the dry dirt. Then he noticed something strange. No insects. No night calls. Movement at all. Even on Iosnin, there was always some kind of life. Tiny creatures, windbirds, sky crawlers. Tonight, nothing. He turned slowly. Something was out there, and then a soft clicking sound. Click, click, click it. Echoed from the ridge behind the outpost. Rain dropped low and raised his rifle. His eyes scanned the darkness. He saw it. A tall shadow, not human, walking with slow, careful steps. It was covered in thick black armor that shimmered like wet glass. No lights, no markings. Its head moved side to side, scanning the ground. Not held his breath. Another figure appeared behind the first. Then a third. 3 of them. They didn't walk like soldiers. They didn't move like explorers. They moved like predators. Rain backed toward the outpost, careful not to make noise. He slipped inside and locked the door. The woman was already standing, her eyes wide. She spoke again. Just one word. Collectors. Rain looked at her. Who are they? She pointed to the scanner. Not searchers, not soldiers. They collect. He didn't understand at first. Collect what? She pointed to herself, then to him. Living beings. A chill ran down his spine. Rain activated the defense systems. Weak shields, 1 turret, low power. Nothing strong enough to hold off 3 armored aliens. He turned to the woman. Do they know you're here? She looked down, then slowly nodded. She wasn't just running. She was being hunted. A sudden loud thump hit the outer wall. Rain grabbed his rifle. Lights flickered. They were at the door. The woman stepped back. Panic in her eyes. Get in the crawl tunnel, Rain said quickly. Pointing to the open panel in the floor, she hesitated. "I'll follow." "Go." She climbed in just as the outer lock began to glow red. They were cutting through. Rain dropped into the tunnel and pulled the hatch shut behind him. Seconds later, the outpost shook. A loud blast roared above. Dust fell from the tunnel ceiling. Rain and the woman crawled fast through the narrow passage. The tunnel led away from the outpost, through a rocky path underground. 'Twas dark, but his wristlight guided the way. Behind them, heavy boots landed with a thud. The collectors were inside. Rain increased speed. "Just a little more," he whispered. They reached the exit hatch, leading to a cave near the mountain's edge. Rain pushed it open, and they crawled out into the cold night. Above them, the outposts burned. The black-armored figures stood inside, searching, scanning. But the woman wasn't there. Rain turned to her. "We can't go back." She looked at the fire, her face full of sorrow. Then she pointed upward, drawing in the dirt, a star. A path, a dark circle. Then she tapped his chest. "You? Key," she whispered. Rain frowned. "Me." She nodded. Then she placed a small glowing chip in his hand. It wasn't metal, it felt alive. "What is this?" She didn't answer suddenly. The cave behind them glowed faint blue. One of the hunters had found the tunnel exit. Rain grabbed her hand. They ran through the rocks, across the dark plains. No time to stop. No time to think. As they ran, Rain had one question burning in his mind. Why him? Why did she come to him? Why was this chip given to him? What was inside it? But answers would have to wait. Because now they weren't just hiding. From hunters, they were part of the hunt, and Rain finally understood. She wasn't the only one they were after. Asterisk. They didn't stop running until the twin moons of Eos 9 rose high in the sky. Commander Rain and the alien woman hid in a dry cave, behind sharp rocks, far from the burning remains of his outpost. The cold bit through their clothes. Wind howled across the land. But it was safe for now. Rain checked the chip she had given him. It sat in his palm, warm and softly glowing. No writing, no symbols. It's just a smooth surface, like it had been grown, not built. "What is this?" he asked again. The woman took it gently from his hand. She held it to her temple, closed her eyes. And for a moment, it lit up, not the chip. Her eyes, they flashed bright white, then dimmed. She opened her hand and handed it back. Rain stared at her. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was a carrier. She held something important, something alive inside her mind. He looked around the cave, scanning for signs of danger. The collectors hadn't followed. Not yet. But they would. "We need to find shelter," he said. "A ship. Something." She pointed deeper into the cave. Rain raised his brow. "You know this place?" She nodded. Then she tapped her temple. She knew not from memory, but from data-hidden knowledge passed to her. She walked ahead. And Rain followed, rifle ready. The cave opened into a narrow tunnel. Faint markings on the walls glowed when they walked past. Old alien, not human. Rain stopped. These symbols, they're like the ones in ancient Prothean ruins. She looked back and whispered, "Before them." His heart skipped. Before the Protheans. That would mean these tunnels were thousands of years old. She placed her hand on one of the symbols. And the ground trembled. A wall slid open. Behind it a hidden chamber, dark and silent. In the center, a small console blinked slowly. Rain stepped forward. "This is a control room." The woman walked to the console and placed the chip inside a small slot. The lights turned on. The screen displayed a 3D hologram of Eos-9. Then, a blinking red point. Rain leaned closer. It was a collector base, hidden beneath a northern ridge. You want to go there? He asked. She nodded. Control center. You're crazy, Rain whispered. We're running from them, not walking into their den. She turned to him and spoke clearly. If we don't, they find us. They find more. Rain looked into her eyes. They weren't just afraid anymore. They were determined. He sighed. All right, we go, but we need a plan. The next morning, they found an abandoned mining skiff, half buried in the dust. It was broken, its engine fried. But its fuel cell was intact. Rain spent hours fixing the hover drive with old parts from his belt kit. The woman helped, handing tools, cleaning wires, staying quiet as they worked. She pointed to the ship's side and drew a symbol, 2 spirals crossing. She looked at him. Code. She nodded. RAYN scanned the symbol into the nav system. The console beeped and unlocked a hidden map layer 1 not found in human databases. She had access to ancient paths, old tunnels under the collector base. We go in through the bottom, Rain whispered. Underground? She nodded. But how do we destroy the base? She walked to the engine compartment and pulled out a thick red power core. Rain's eyes widened. That's unstable. That's a fuel bomb. She simply said, enough to break control. Rain stared at her. She wasn't just trying to survive. She was going to end it. All or nothing, he muttered. You really believe we can do this? She looked up at him. I have to. He didn't ask more. By nightfall, they rode the repaired skiff under the cover of a sandstorm, heading north. Rain. Drow, the wind smashing against their faces. The woman sat beside him, holding the power core in a satchel, eyes fixed on the horizon. He glanced at her. What's your name? She was silent for a moment. Then, softly, she said, Kale. Rain nodded. I'm Rain. Guess we're a team. Now? Kale gave a small smile, her first since they met. Ahead, mountains rose like jagged teeth. Under them, the enemy. Rain tightened his grip on the controls. You said they collect, he said. Kale nodded. Collect what? She looked at him and whispered, voices, minds, life. They keep what makes us. Us? Rain went silent. They weren't just hunters. They were stealing souls. Now he understood. Why Kale cried when she ate. Now he knew why they couldn't run. Anymore they had to fight, because if they didn't stop the collectors now, there'd be no one left to remember who we were. The skiff hovered in total darkness. Kale had shut off the lights. Rain slowed the engine. As they entered the ancient canyon below the collector base, the walls were sharp and high, black rock covered in strange markings. Wind howled above but. Down here, there was only stillness. Stillness and pressure. Rain could feel it in his chest, like the air was too heavy. Like the canyon itself didn't want them here. We're close, he whispered. Kale nodded without looking. Her eyes were closed. She was listening not with her ears, but something deeper. Rain checked the scanner. No signals. No guards, no lights. Exactly what he feared. It's too quiet, he said. Kale opened her eyes. They don't need to watch. She pointed forward to a crack in the canyon wall. The map in her mind had shown it clearly. An old tunnel. Hidden. Forgotten by time, RAYN stopped the skiff. This is it. She nodded. He took the power core from the back compartment. The bomb. Small, red, and deadly. Kale reached into the satchel and gave him a small piece of cloth. On it, she had drawn a simple map. 5 levels, 1 center tower, and a red circle at the base. Main control, she said. We go there. Rain nodded. In and out. No sound, no mistakes. They stepped off the skiff and entered the tunnel. The inside smelled of cold metal and dust. The walls were old, but still alive, covered in soft, glowing veins. Like the structure itself had a pulse. Rain ran his hand along the wall. This isn't steel. It's organic. Kale touched a spot near the entrance. The wall moved, opened, silently like breathing. Rain shook his head. This place, it's not built. It's grown. Kale didn't answer. Her face was calm, but her steps were careful. Every turn, every hallway, she knew before they reached it. The map wasn't just in her mind. It was part of her. They passed a long hallway filled with clear pods. Rain's stomach twisted. Inside each pod was a person, frozen, still alive, not just aliens. Humans, 2 men, women, even children. Kale stopped beside one pod. Inside was a young boy with glowing green veins across his skin. Rain whispered, "There, extracting something." Kale looked down. Memory, identity, voice. Rain looked at her. "They tried to take yours, didn't they?" She nodded slowly. "I fought it. I hid a part of me, deep inside." Rain understood now. That part of her, her mind, her voice, her truth, that was what the chip protected. That was what they were here to destroy. They moved deeper, past the sleeping prisoners. Every room told a darker story. A hall of broken suits armor, like the hunters wore, cracked and stained. A chamber full of floating masks, empty. Lifeless, twitching. A room with no light at all, just soft breathing in the dark. Rain gripped his rifle tight. "We're in the heart of a nightmare." Kale placed a hand on his shoulder. Almost there. At the lowest level, they reached a large gate. No lights, no guards, just silence. Kale placed her hand on the wall. It didn't move. Rain waited. She pressed harder, closed her eyes. The wall shimmered and opened like it recognized her. Inside was a giant black room, empty except for a tower rising in the middle. A single control pillar, glowing red dot. Kale walked forward. Rain followed, step by step, eyes scanning everything. Then a voice, cold, metallic. Not from a speaker, from inside their heads. "Return the carrier, leave the human." Rain flinched. What the Kale stood tall. "You will not take me. You were made for this. Your voice is data. Your soul is structure." Rain raised his rifle. "Shut up. You are irrelevant. You are temporary." Suddenly, walls unfolded. Collectors, dozens. Black armor. Silent steps. Eyes like mirrors. Kale held out her hand. A pulse of light burst from her skin, blinding. Raw energy. The room shook. Rayn fired at the nearest hunter. His shots bounced off, but slowed it down. Kale ran to the control pillar, placed the chip inside. The port, screams echoed, not voices, signals. Code breaking. Systems crashing. Rain grabbed the power core and set the timer. 60 seconds, he shouted. "We need to move." Kale looked back. "No, I stay." "What?" "No, we leave together." She stepped back and smiled softly. "This place was built from silence. My voice ends it." Rain hesitated. The collectors were falling, glitching, screaming. The walls pulsed. Red dot. Kale whispered, "Run, Rain." Rain's hand shook. He looked at her one last time. Then he ran. The explosion lit up the mountain from the inside. Out. A wave of white light shot through the cracks. Rain flew out of the hidden tunnel just in time, falling into the dust. He lay on the ground, chest heaving above him. The tower collapsed. Below him, Kale was gone, but her voice remained in the wind, in the silence. In the stars, she had spoken, and the collectors would never be silent again. Asterisk. Dust rained from the sky like ash. Commander Rain lay still, his ears ringing. The ground beneath him shook long after the explosion faded. Above him, smoke curled into the night sky. The mountain that once hid the collector base now stood broken, its heart torn open. Kale was gone. He had watched her vanish into the light. She had chosen to stay. To speak, to fight, to destroy. But now there was only silence again. Rain pushed himself up, every muscle aching. He looked back at the ruin. Fires burned where no fires should be. Strange machines twisted and sparked. The ground was littered with broken pieces, metal, bone, and something else. Something alive but still. He walked closer, slowly. There were bodies, dozens of them. Some were collector's armor cracked open, empty inside. Others were prisoners, freed, confused. Weak, a child coughed. A young girl, no older than 10, lay beside a broken pod, blinking up at the sky. Rain rushed over and lifted her gently. Her skin glowed faint green. "You're safe," he said. "It's over." She looked at him and whispered, "She freed us." Rain felt his throat tighten. Kale. Over the next hour, more survivors came out of the tunnels. Some walked. Some crawled. None spoke at first. Then, one by one, they began to speak again slowly. Softly, as if they were remembering how. Rain understood. Their voices had been taken. Now they were returning. He led them away from the wreck, across the ridge to a safe valley where his emergency beacon could reach orbit. He built fires, gave food, shared water. No weapons, no uniforms. Just humans, aliens, survivors dashed together. By morning, the sun rose over a new world, but Rain's eyes stayed fixed on the mountain. He felt her there. Or something of her. The next night, as stars filled the sky again, Rain stood alone near the edge of the valley. He held Kale's cloth map in his hand. It was worn, stained with dust and time. Then his comms device blinked one signal. A weak one, unmarked, unknown. He tapped it open. A voice crackled through. "Rain?" He froze. The voice was soft, distorted, but real. "Rain, it's me." "Kale," he whispered. "I had to stay, but not all of me did." He looked up at the stars. "I am light now," thought. "I moved through the data. Into their network, I found what they stole. I freed them, and myself." Rain felt a tear slip down his cheek. "You're alive. Not as I was, but I am here. I always will be." He swallowed. "We thought you were gone." "Not gone," echoed. "Echoes do not die." Rain stood quietly, letting the wind move around him. "They will return," she said. "Others like them. More prisons, more silence." He nodded. "Then, we fight." "Not alone," she said suddenly. Scums blinked again. Multiple signals, ships. Not military, not hostile. Survivors, dozens of crafts, entering EOS 9's orbit, piloted by the freed. The rescued, the once forgotten. A new voice came through the radio. "This is Ralvek of Orion 5. You helped my daughter. We're here to stand with you." Another. "This is Captain Noma. I was taken 5 years ago. I owe my life to the light that broke the tower." More followed. Rain stared at the sky. Kale hadn't just destroyed a prison. She had lit a signal. Across the stars, later that week, a temporary station was built in the valley. Rain led it, not as a commander, but as a guardian. They didn't call it a base. They called it the Echo Post. A place where anyone who had been taken could find their voice again. Inside the command room, one screen stayed on all day. A soft light pulsed across it. Not code, not numbers, just a pattern, a rhythm, like breathing, like memory, like Kale, and in the deepest part of the mountain beneath. The rock and dust, a flicker of white light blinked once. Then again, a voice. Barely a whisper echoed through the stone. I'm not done yet. The stars over HFY were no longer silent. Ships moved across the sky like silver birds. Tents and small domes dotted the valley below. Children, alien and human, played together near water tanks and old supply crates. Engineers fixed solar panels. Medics moved between shelters. It was no longer a research outpost. It was a home. Rain stood near the hilltop, overlooking what had once been a battlefield. Now it was something else. He wore no uniform, just simple gear, patched and dusty. A scar ran down his arm, healed from the collapse. His eyes were tired, but focused. A small boy ran up beside him, a human with short white hair and strange glowing freckles. Commander Rain. Look, the boy pointed up. A new ship had just arrived, sleek, with glowing blue wings. Rain smiled. They made it. The boy looked at him. More people. Rain nodded. More voices. The boy thought for a second. Is she coming back? 2. Rain looked at the sky, and for a moment, he heard a soft hum in the air. Not engines, not wind. A familiar echo. He crouched beside the boy. She's already here. The new ship landed quietly on the edge of the camp. Rain walked toward it, followed by a few helpers. The door opened, and a woman stepped out, tall, red-skinned, with silver eyes. Behind her, 2 others carried tech. Crate's name? Rain asked with a warm smile. Nara, the woman replied. I heard the signal. Rain nodded. Kale's voice. Keys, Mara said. It reached us, even on the edge of the dark zone. Rain led her toward the central dome. We're building something here, not just walls. Memory, refuge. A warning, too. Nara looked around at the mixture of species and ages. Looks like you're building peace. Rain chuckled. That, and a few strong defenses. That night, as the new arrivals settled in, Rain sat alone by the old skiff Kale had found. In the canyon, 'twas broken now, rusted, but he couldn't throw it away. It had carried them into the heart of the enemy. Now it stood as a reminder of where it all began. He took out Kale's cloth map from his pocket. It was folded neatly, the lines faded, but in the center, a new mark had appeared. A tiny glowing dot. He hadn't drawn it. He hadn't touched it. It grew there. Rain held the map close. Still with us, aren't you? The wind picked up slightly, and from his comms device, a small whisper crackled through. New voice detected. Rain froze. He tapped the screen. Nothing then. Then dash another whisper. She's awake. At the edge of the ruined mountain, deep underground, a pod opened with a hiss. Inside, a girl slowly sat up. Her skin shimmered faint silver. Her eyes were closed, but glowing beneath the lids. Not Kale, but connected. She opened her eyes and whispered, Rain. The next morning, alarms woke the camp. Rain rushed outside, rifle in hand, but it wasn't. Danger, it was light. A figure stood at the canyon ridge, surrounded by broken mist. The girl, alive, breathing. Not older than 15, Rayn approached carefully. Who are you? She looked up at him, her voice soft but clear. I am what was left. Rain stepped closer. Of Kale, the girl nodded. A part of her, a seed. She planted me when she entered the system. Rain's voice shook. Why? She knew the collectors would return, in new form. Rain looked toward the sky. A storm was coming, but this time they would be ready. He reached out his hand. Come, you're safe here. The girl took it. Her hand was warm. Her heartbeat was steady. Her eyes were Kale's. Weeks passed. The camp became a settlement. The settlement became a station. People came from across the stars, carrying stories of escape, resistance, survival, and in the center of it all, a tower was built not for weapons or control, but for memory. The voice beacon. It pulsed once every hour, sending a simple signal across the galaxy. Not a warning, not a call for help, just a message. We are not silent. Not anymore. Rain stood beside the tower, watching the sky. Beside him, the girl Kale's Echo watched too. What will we call this place? She asked. Rain thought for a moment, then smiled. The beginning.